Assemblyman David Tanguipa, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Of course, it's always amazing to join you.
I want to start with you being the new vice chairman of the Budget Committee. Were you surprised to get this position?
I was surprised, but I am grateful. I'm grateful for all of them because this is one of the areas that I think should be a main priority for Californians. And not only that, it's a great honor to be the vice chair of the Assembly Budget Committee for one of the most powerful economies in the world. And I think that comes with a lot of responsibilities and duties, a lot of future challenges, and I like that. And I signed up for it. So again, I'm just grateful that they've given me that opportunity.
A lot of challenges to focus on this year. What do you think should be at the forefront and the first thing that this legislature addresses?
Well, I think at the forefront, we have to see that our budget is like gambling with a grenade. And when the Legislative Analyst's Office and the Department of Finance under the governor's office is telling us that we have future deficits that exceed $20 billion year over year, as far out as they predict, that means for the legislators, for the next governor, for the next people who want to lead the state of California, Governor Newsom is giving us a massive problem and is really kicking everything down the line, almost in my opinion, that so he can say, well, it didn't collapse under me. But that's our responsibility. That's my responsibility as the vice chair of budget to say we've got to protect the future. We've got to rein in our crazy amount of spending, and we have to prioritize Californians in this state because the massive deficits, the bill is coming. We are going to have to pay it one way or the other.
In the budget hearing that you helped lead this past week, we did hear that from your colleagues on the Democratic side, also from the legislative analyst, Gabe Pettick, who said that if the governor has big solutions to address the structural shortfall, to address gaps that could be left by the Trump administration, we should know sooner than May, than what he said he'd want to do. But do you think the legislature should do more before May? Should the legislature be stepping up, considering that technically it has the power of the purse?
You are 100% correct on that. I do not put 100% blame on the governor, especially when the Assembly and the Senate have to approve this. And if we're going to grant him the ability to create a lot of this deficit spending, we can't say that our hands are clean from it. And I think there's a big reason why I was put as the budget vice chair is I may have to be the budget bad guy that has the hard conversation and wants to bring back accountability. I think I need to be the person who says, I wish I could help out these organizations. I wish I could solve these problems. But when I'm telling everybody, well, that means in the future, our deficit's going to go from 20 billion to 40 billion to 50 billion, because that is almost what it looks like. That's an irresponsible thing to do. And I wasn't elected to make friends. I was elected to bring accountability. And that needs to happen. And it's on the Assembly to do it. It is on the Senate to do it. We can't just say it's Governor Newsom's fault if we're allowing it to happen.
You mentioned being the budget bad guy. Within the last year, you have been removed or kicked off committees for being outspoken about different issues on the Insurance Committee, on the Energy Utilities Committee, and then the Elections Committee. How do you think this year will go?
Well, I think Californians right now are actually angry. I think they're angry because if we're seeing record revenues, if we're seeing that our budget is almost 100% larger than it was 10 years ago, and where's our return on investment? If we're paying the highest taxes, I better have the nicest roads. If we're paying the highest taxes in property taxes, I better have the nicest schools. We don't have any of that. If we voted for a high-speed rail and a train that was supposed to get us from the Bay Area to LA, give us the dang train. And we're not getting any of that. And so when I say about being the budget bad guy, I'm just talking about Californians want a return on their investment. They're willing to stay here. They haven't become California refugees to the rest of the nation just yet. And they want to be the California rebels that just fight for their pocket. And I think that a lot of it, they look at, if we have, again, record revenues and my money's not coming back to me, where's it going? Is corruption happening in Sacramento? Are people taking from us? And I feel the exact same way. So I understand that sometimes accountability and truth hurts. We've heard that before. But I'm dedicated to the numbers and the data. And if people don't like the data and facts, that's a personal issue. That's not something that I'm here to work on. I am here to work on our budget, our balance sheet, and I will be tough on that. I will be very clear and direct, and they can listen and debate with the Department of Finance, the Legislative Analyst's Office. I told them that I'm going to be their interpreter. So when they give us high language on what fiscal state the state of California is in, I'm going to try to interpret that in layman's term so the general people know exactly what's going on in Sacramento.
I want to switch gears because you've been busy. Aside from the budget, you're also a plaintiff in the lawsuit over Proposition 50, California's new congressional district maps. You filed a request with the United States Supreme Court. I mean, how confident are you that the highest court will block those maps?
Again, the entire argument is whether race was used as a predominant factor in the Prop 50 maps. And I believe it's very clear. We have seen, whether it was on your show or on podcasts, the map maker and the intent of the map maker had racial implications on it. I mean, again, when somebody states that the first thing they did when making these maps was create a Latino majority district, we should expect that to happen. So we're hopeful that the Supreme Court can see that. There's a lot of case law that shows that the intent of the map maker is extremely important to weigh into this, and I just hope that the Supreme Court sees it. So we're expecting, at least hopeful, that by Monday, February 9th, that the Supreme Court is able to weigh in and apply that emergency injunction.
The Supreme Court has upheld Texas's gerrymandered maps, and also, I mean, they were accused of racially gerrymandering those. What makes California's situation any different than that?
Specifically, the language that was used. When the Supreme Court was listening to Texas's new maps, when the Supreme Court was listening to Texas's new maps, they understood that the entire legislative body, that's the map maker in Texas. The legislators are the map makers. Our map maker was Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell admitted to being the map maker, and Paul Mitchell admitted that his first thing was a racial gerrymander. That's the fundamental difference. The legislators in Texas did not say we were racially gerrymandering the state of California. The map maker in California did say that it was race that played a predominant factor in his creation. That is the fundamental difference between Texas and the California lawsuit.
Just to be clear, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee paid Paul Mitchell to draw these maps. And at least on our program, in response to a question about breaking up communities of interest, he said, quote, "This plan in total improves Asian voting power, and I expect something similar to come out from Latino groups that are looking at analyzing this to determine how it's affecting Latino voting power, particularly in the Central Valley, to positively impact those communities. Redistricting will always have cities getting split." So he's not there directly saying we're helping Asians over others or Latinos over everyone else. Your response to that.
Well, this is one of the areas why I wish Paul Mitchell would have testified in court when he was asked to testify in court. And even in the dissent, it actually talks about how he claimed legislative privilege, which he's not a legislator. That doesn't.
But is he following orders from the people who paid him? I mean, should it be incumbent upon Democrats in Congress and Democrats in the legislature to maybe do more explaining for him?
Well, here's the part that would have been the great question we could have asked him from that comment. When you say that you expect Latino groups to see the same thing in the Central Valley, why? Why? As the map maker, you expect Latino improvements? That means the intention he did was to improve Latinos in the Central Valley. Because if he could answer, your expectation was that Latinos were going to see a positive outlook in the Central Valley? Can you explain why you did that? Well, that means that he probably chose Latino areas and Latino specific communities to put them in California Assembly District 13, which is what we talked about in our lawsuit. And if it's his expectation that they're going to see a positive outlook, that means it was his intention to use race to draw that map. And that's exactly his open admission on that. We again wish he could have came to court and testified on that. And even the dissenting judge says that this feels like a bad actor when they refuse to testify in court on their intentions of the creation of the map.
Voters did approve the map, 64.4% of them, according to the Secretary of State's final results. If the Supreme Court does end up siding with you here and blocking these maps, are you worried about any potential blowback from voters here?
I think the voters should be angry at how sloppy this was done. I mean, there was a way that this probably could have been done and could have been done in conjunction with the Constitution. I think again, I had stated this from the very beginning, that the voters were sold a lie from the beginning, whether it's in response to Texas, but not even given the full bill of why Texas was in its position. I think the voters were, again, presented something that was unconstitutional. And in the same dissent, it talks about an unconstitutional gerrymander built on racial implications by the map maker and voted on by the legislative body does not get washed away simply because the voters voted for it. And our marketing ability in politics does not clear them of the unconstitutional violations from the beginning. And I do think that the voters should be angry, and they should be angry with how messy, how dirty, and not only that, how much money could have been potentially wasted on this.
But a potential more realistic scenario is that voters take their apathy toward the United States Supreme Court, which many Democrats in this state already think does essentially whatever the president wants it to. So what would be your response to that kind of reaction if it were to happen?
You know, I think that's something that, again, when they look at the Supreme Court, there have been multiple cases that they have not leaned always. It's not 100% with the president. There have been other cases also that have an 8-1 or a 9-0 ruling. We look at what happened with Texas, with Louisiana, and those two original lawsuits were in 2021 that Texas, Louisiana have to redistrict. And now even the Supreme Court's going to weigh in on the Voter Rights Act. We're about to see too whether tariffs fall within the purview of the president, or is that a power of the purse that belongs to Congress? They're going to argue who has foreign powers, and a lot of people believe that the president has that, and we're going to see a lot of those changes. But the part that I love about our case is actually it is a lot more similar to the 2021 case for Texas and Louisiana than it is the 2025 case in Texas.
Okay. And do Republicans have a game plan in the event that the Supreme Court does end up siding with Democrats here?
I think the game plan is to win 2026 and to make sure that Republicans hold on to the majority in Washington. I think we're going to make sure that
But what about in California? What about California Republicans?
Well, again, this map and the Prop 50 maps themselves make 5 more predominantly blue seats, but that means it's not over yet. I think our game plan, a lot of it is actually to make sure that we have voter ID on the ballot. I think there are a lot of discrepancies on that. I mean, we found out that a dog voted in California elections, so I believe that voter ID is a very important step that we have to take. So our game plan is still going to incrementally work at Californians. You know, I never look at my colleagues on the opposite side. I don't ever blame them for any of the issues in California when it comes to why would I blame them? Blame them for winning and doing everything they said that they would do? I look internally and I think we can do better as Republicans in the state of California to present a message to Californians saying, give us a chance. If you want accountability, you want responsibility, you want just proper safeguards, let us get to that point. And when there's a supermajority in Sacramento that is making our lives significantly harder, maybe blame them before you blame the Republican Party or potentially the president, because one side's been in control for a long time. Just give us a chance. And that's what we're going to be working on, is making sure that we can deliver a message that people can actually eat.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Sullivan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.